Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
This is a hardcore grind interview with the fabulous author Cherry. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. So very, very excited to be here today. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, I'm glad that you were able to share your time and space and your energy with me on today. Now, you know I always like to talk about a go moment, right? And you've had a few, but I want to go back.
Yes.
I want to go back because the
Okay.
go moment is really when thought and execution comes together. A lot of times we think about doing something and we don't really do it at that time, and maybe a year or a week or 2 years, 3 years go by, and it's like, maybe I might, then we don't necessarily do it. But we're really mindful about how other people pour into themselves. You know, how they speak on themselves, if they're speaking life. But kind of when we deal in our own lives, we deal in lack a little bit, and fear steps in and it stops us from stepping out. So when you decided to write your first book, what was that moment? What was going on in your life in that moment that made you say, okay, I'm about to go and make this happen?
Well, you know, when I started writing some time ago, it's almost fearful to say the date. You're like, oh, you've been doing this a long time. But so the goal moment was really just like, okay, what are you doing here? Are you just going to sit here and do nothing? Are you going, what do you really want to do with your life? And so it was over 10 years ago that I started writing. I mean, it had to be about 2008 because I was in college. And I used to always write, right? But then in college, I just started writing in my notebooks when I was supposed to be listening. And I remember specifically, I was in an accounting class because I did get my degree in accounting. I was in an accounting class and I was not doing well in it. And I've been going to tutoring and everything. And I'm sitting in class and I'm like, well, I'm a little bit bored with this at the moment. So I just started writing. And so by the time I graduated college, I'd actually written an entire book, not only in college, right, but, outside of school and classes and things like that. I'd actually written a whole book, and I was like, well, what do you do with this now? And I had, such big dreams, and maybe this is, what people have for all of their books, their first books especially, I'm about to release this book. I'm going to be famous. I'm going to, be this great, well-known author. And I started trying to submit it to, lit agents back then. And no one gave me a shot. And I was just, so bummed. And I was like, okay. And then so I met my now husband. And he was like, well, can I read it? And I was like, oh, I guess so. And so I gave it to him. He read it, and he passed it on to his sister. And they were both like, we love this book. We love it. What are you going to do with it? And so I ended up finding a self-publishing company, and I went that route. And I don't know, it was some time later. So that was actually, let me circle back. That was called The Red in Her Eyes. It was my very first book. I didn't know not anything about I knew nothing about what genres were out there, why you should have a specific genre. I knew nothing about what, if it was like a romance book, what the qualifications should be to be considered a romance book. I mean, I just wrote and put it out there. And, I don't regret that at all. I loved that book back then, and I still love it now. I did, fast forward to current day, I did take it off the market and I rewrote it into Just Like Old Times, which is a rewrite of that original story, The Red in Her Eyes. I titled it Just Like Old Times for a number of reasons, right? So I titled it because it's like a return to me, like writing fiction. It was a return to the character's story, and it was also a return to the characters returning to each other within the story. I know that is a mouthful.
But I love it. I love it. Okay, so wait a minute. Okay, husband, I know that's right. So listen,
I know, right?
this is the thing, though. And this is what I get. A lot of times when people want to write a book, the first thing they want is a literary agent. They want to get signed to a big company. But in that instance, you're waiting for somebody to tell you that you're great.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love the fact that you were like, listen, my husband said it was good. Let me go do something. And you moved on it. And a lot of us don't move on that because even though our spouse has said, let's do it, we still have that fear. But I'm glad that you didn't let that stop you. You allowed his words to encourage you to go forward.
Mm-hmm. We have to believe in ourselves because, a lot of us are lucky to have at least one person who believes in us. But there are people who don't have anyone who believes in what they're doing. And it's at that time when we have to believe in ourselves enough to last through those moments where other people start to jump on board. And at really tough times. But you have to be the motivation and the driving force to believe in yourself enough. And then, too, it's like, if you're walking around and someone says, oh, you wrote a book, and they want to know more about it, and you're just kind of like, well, I think it's good, and you're not really sure about it, or you're acting as if you're not sure, that person's not going to jump on the bandwagon. They're not going to believe in it. They're not going to do anything but say, oh, that's cool, good job. But if you believe in it and you're like, I wrote this great book and you believe it's great and you know why it's great and you can tell them why they are also going to believe it's great, then they're more likely to jump on that bandwagon. And, it takes like those grassroots movements, like I believe in myself, and now I have at least 3 other people who believe in me. So at least me and my 3 people, us 4, we're a crew, and we're going to keep it moving.
I love it. I love it. Now, not only do you write romance novels, you also write children's books. Talk a little bit about that, because that's quite a different shift.
Yeah. So, okay, I like to look at it like they go together, right? Because it is like a variation of, or a variant, right? So you got like romance books, you're talking about love and some spicy scenes, and you have children's books where you're not talking about anything about that, right? But if you really think about it, to create some children in the universe, you got to be having some spicy scenes in your real life. So they kind of go together. But like children's books, it came to me because, of course, I think one of the things that happens when people have children or when they're around a lot of small children in their lives, they start, reading the books and they're like, oh, there's something is lacking or something is missing in this genre. Or they just want to make a book for their child. And so I think it's like a natural thing. So when I had my youngest daughter, when she was younger, I wanted to write, some books for her. And they were pretty simple. I think they were like, Kara learns how to tie her shoes. Kara goes to the library, things like that. But then, like, my mother passed, and I didn't know, like, I was like, well, I don't know. I mean, it's still on the back burner writing the book, but it wasn't a focus. And then I started thinking about, like, all of the things that my mother and my daughter wouldn't be able to do that my mother and my oldest daughter have been able to do. And my daughters are 13 years apart. And so my oldest daughter got a good amount of time with my mother. And so I was like, well, maybe they can go on journeys together. That would be cool. But then it's like, well, where are they going to go? Why are they going to go these places? What makes it great? And so because I'm not a teacher by profession, again, I'm an accountant, but my love is for teaching. Like, I love to teach. And so I was like, well, maybe they can go on journeys together and they can learn about different topics. And so the book idea kept evolving until I finally was like, well, I want to teach the girl or the children about lesser known African queens. And so that's how, yes. And so that's how it came about. And so the first book came out in what's this year, 2023, so 2021. The first book came out in 2021, and it is Curiously Kara Meets Pharaoh Hatshepsut. And Pharaoh Hatshepsut, it was the second known woman pharaoh in Egypt. And so they go over there by way of like a magical funnel that transports them. They say this cute little rhyme. They also take a cat, which, after they go through the magical funnel and land in their destination, the cat wears this little crown, which allows the cat to talk, kind of like a wishbone. I like to say it's like wishbone meets the magic school bus. And so while they're over there, they meet Pharaoh Hatshepsut, and she teaches them all about her reign and things that she did. And then the second children's book came out this year in April, and that is Curiously Kara Meets Queen Amanirenas. Now, Queen Amanirenas was one of the queens of the Kingdom of Kush, and she is really well known. Well, not well known, but she is known for fighting off the Roman army, which was one of the most powerful armies of the time. It was led by Caesar Augustus, and that army was the one that kind of took down Cleopatra and her husband. And so then they started moving south, and they wanted to take over the Kingdom of Kush. And the Kushites was like, no, you're not about to take our land. And so she's one of the queens that was able to keep them from taking over her land.
I love it. Now, tell us a little bit about your publishing company, Write and Vibe.
Yeah, so that is my baby. So Write and Vibe was birthed from. So I'll back up just a little bit. So when my mother died, I took some time off. I took a month off of work in order to write her story. And so during that time, it was like February in Cleveland. And for those that don't know, February in Cleveland is not nice to people who live here. It's very cold. It's very dreary. And I am not someone who enjoys the cold weather. And so during that time, I was like, well, I want to write her story. And so it was very hard for me to write in the house. And so I was like venturing out into so many different places. Like, well, I'm going to write at the library. I'm going to write at this coffee shop. And nothing was great. I can be very picky when it comes to where I want to write. And it was either too drafty or too hot or too noisy, or the seats were uncomfortable, or I was too distracted, or it just didn't smell good. And I was like, well, I think I'm going to make a place for people to write just like me. And so this was in 2019. And of course, in 2020, COVID happened. And so I was like, oh, well, I guess that's not going to happen now. And so I just kind of sat on it, and the goal of that center would be to eventually publish books of the writers that frequented there. And so I decided to pivot. And so I learned, I'd already been writing for some years and kind of knew a little bit about a little bit, or a lot of it about a lot of it. And I was like, well, let me go ahead and learn about this publishing thing. And so I really started taking the classes. And, in 2020, everything was online, everything you needed, because everything was Zoom. We were kind of like zoomed out by then, but I was like using it up, learning everything I could. And so I went to a friend in the late summer of 2020, was like, hey, I want to try out this publishing thing. Do you have anything I can publish? She was like, yeah, I don't know. I think I can pull something together. And so from there, we went through the whole process. It was kind of like a test, right? And so in December of 2020, I actually published her book under Write and Vibe. It was the very first book on the imprint. And her book is still very successful to this day. She, the author, Valencia Joy, the author of the book called I Met a Guy and Other Things You Can Only Discuss with Your Sister Girlfriends. That book, she just won Author of the Year, like a couple weeks ago. So she is doing very well. Her book is doing very well. And Write and Vibe now has 6 books under its imprint. I have kind of narrowed down what I publish. And I like to say that Write and Vibe publishes books that celebrate sisterhood, livelihood, childhood, and Black love.
I love it. I love it. Now, Black women who can write is powerful. What does that power mean to you?
Oh, my gosh. It means everything. It means everything because we are a group of people that often get ostracized from so many different things, right? We're minorities in different ways. We're a woman. We're also Black. Or, we're dealing with challenges that other people may not have to deal with. So, unfortunately, many of us are single mothers of, more than one kid or one kid. We're working full time, but we still have all of those dreams. We still have so many dreams, and a lot of us desire to be a writer. And so those are the women that I usually work with. And so I'm not going to come to you as a publisher like, well, I need you to have this done by this date. I need you to have this money up front. I need all of these certain things, and I need you to have these qualifications as a writer. We don't do that at Write and Vibe because I understand how it is. And so what we do is we just kind of work with you. So we can work with you up for like a year. We'll meet as long as you can say that you can give 1 hour a week toward writing. I will meet with you personally, and we will sit down via Zoom, and we will write together for an hour. That's like a power hour where if you're having questions or stuck in some kind of, mental block, you can ask me questions, and we can just talk back and forth through it. We can do that. We will write together, and then, to get started, you just put a small payment up front, and then the balance of that is not due until your book actually goes to publication. And so whether that's a year or whether that's 3 months, we are working together. And Write and Vibe with the royalties as well, it is standard or more high, we say higher than standard royalties. So when you're talking about, this company only gave me 10%. No, we're giving you 70% royalties. And then on top of that, you are a part of the Write and Vibe family, right? So other publishing companies, they may say, once you're done publishing, we don't have anything to do with you. That's not how it is here. We go places together. So for example, we were in Chicago for the librarians conference, and I got tables for the authors to do signings. Before that, what was that before? Before that, we were in New York. Our books were on a NASDAQ billboard, and so we were there together on watching the books on the billboard. And so when I go do an event, I'm not just taking my books. I'm taking everybody's books. There is no there is no loneliness in writing vibe. Like I'm constantly sending, emails like, hey, I saw this opportunity come up. It may be fitting for you. You decide, So I like to say we're not like a typical publishing company. It is more of like a family.
I love it. I love it. Now, when you are writing, how does your creativity flow?
Oh, man. It is just like, it's hard because I have two daughters. One is in college. One is getting ready to start first grade. I work full time. I am a wife as well. And so a lot of things like normal everyday stuff, like someone's in a bad mood or, you gotta, help them get through it, had a bad day or someone had a good day. Now you want to celebrate instead of write. Creativity for me is more or less like pushing through and finding those little bits of time. So when I'm really working on a project, I will make sure that I can distance myself away for, like I said, would meet with the authors like 1 hour a week, that I can do that, the same thing for myself, even if I'm not meeting with anybody. So I'll go to the library or something like that just to make sure that I can focus only, have an hour where I only focus on the characters. And then as time goes on, those characters and that process starts to be easier to remember until you're like, oh, yeah, these characters are really talking to me right now. Additionally, it's always important to really take the time to daydream. I am a big daydreamer. And, a lot of people think that, oh, well, because I'm not writing, I'm not working on my story. But that's not true, because working on your story is sometimes just sitting there and watching a movie, because you can get inspiration from that movie. Like, ask yourself questions if you're watching a movie. What didn't I like about that character? What did I like about that character? If I took that character and put them in my book as a different name with a different personality, but maybe you could even say maybe the same issue, right? How would that character react to that? So, you can find inspiration and creativity anywhere. I read a lot as well. And I think that and I didn't understand this for a very long time, but all writers need to also be readers. You need to keep up with the trends that's happening in books. You need to keep track of like your genre. You also need to read outside of your genre, because when you read outside of your genre, you can say, okay, like I like the way that this author built up the suspense in their book. Like say you're reading like a thriller or something like that, or a mystery. I like the way that this thriller author built up that suspense. How can I also build suspense in my novel? So there's just little things like that with creativity and reading and just really finding time for yourself.
You're absolutely right. And being an author and a reader goes hand in hand, because you got to read to know how to format the book, how it's supposed to look, what dialogue looks like. So you get a lot of education and experience from reading. So I'm glad that you did say that. Now, what do you admire the most about your pen?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
What do you admire the most about your pen?
Oh, yes. So I love the way that the characters interact in the book, right? I love the way that people will tell me, oh, yeah, I relate so much to this character. So I love how the characters present themselves and how I'm able to build the characters up in a way that character feels like they could be your best friend. So that is my favorite thing about my writing. One thing that I have been working on with my writing, and that'll be present in the second book in the Dalton family. So the first book was just like old times. The second book features Onyx and Ayana, and it's called Next Time Around. And I've really been working on slowing down the story and making sure that everything is at the same pace. And so that's one thing that'll be evident in the next book for the readers who come along. And that, I guess that brings up a good point too. As writers, we should always be working to better our craft and not just be like, well, that's just how I write and that's how I'm going to write. Like, that's okay. But if you're not somehow growing in your craft, then you're really doing yourself and your readers a disservice.
Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right. But I want to scroll back because I'm not going to let you pass by what you said real quick and then just keep going. Now, you said you got somebody graduate in college, and then you got somebody starting first grade. That's a gap. That's a gap, sis. That's a gap. But what's going on? Y'all, you and your husband supposed to be outside. Once they hit college, y'all supposed to be like, we outside. Y'all can't go outside. Y'all gotta be inside for another 20 years.
I know. So, but see, what had happened was my first daughter came along. I was 19 when I got pregnant, and I was with her father, who is not my husband. We did get married. It did not work out. We probably shouldn't have gotten married in the first place. It's just one of those kind of situations. And so during that gap between my divorce with him and everything like that was when I met my now husband. And me and my now husband, I'd already been through having one child and not really having like too much support. And I was like, that's not about to happen. So I'm not having another baby until I get married. And so my husband and we got married we got married in 2015, and our daughter was born in 2017. So that is the reason for that gap. Now, I will say, I know we're supposed to be outside, but we do be outside when you're kicking it. Our daughters have the best relationship. They get along so well. And that's one thing that we were kind of worried about, that, with the big age gap, they won't have anything in common. But and while they really don't have much in common, they really have really one of the better sibling bonds that I've seen. So I'm just really thankful for that.
I love it. Now, if you could change anything about the literary industry, what would it be? Why?
Oh, that's a good question. And I appreciate that question because I don't get asked that question a lot. So I think it's already changing, right? It's beginning to pivot because a lot of people can just publish a book. Because it used to be like, well, people who didn't have a degree in some type of fine arts as writing, didn't have some type of degree in that, were looked down upon because you're like, well, because I have a degree, I can write a book. Like, no, anybody can write a book, right? So I guess there's two things, right? And that are actually, both of them are changing. So that one, the first one will be, I think that anybody could write a book, and I don't think people that don't have a degree in it should be looked down upon in any way. I do think that we all need to, do our due diligence and make sure that when we say that we know how to write a book, that we also know everything that goes into writing a book, because it's a lot. Like you mentioned book formatting earlier. You mentioned like dialogue. And so that's one of the things that we need to make sure that we know how to do as well, because we are putting ourselves out there saying that we know how to write a book. The second thing that I would change is how people look at Black authors and Black books, or indie books, I should say. I'll do Black books and indie books, because I think that, again, this is kind of like how people view others who do not have that level of, or where they weren't published traditionally, or just being a Black person, you also have to fight like the invisible barriers or whatever. And so I think that we should, I'm sorry, I got a little distracted. I would hope that in the future we're not looked down upon, or we don't that we're not looked down upon just because we don't have the education or it's because we're Black or because we're published by an indie company. Everyone has the ability to write a book. And I think that because we all have the ability, like every story deserves to be told. We just need to find out why our story matters to somebody else who's reading it.
That's some good stuff. I like that. I like that. Now, you are going to be part of a 200-book giveaway. Tell us about that event.
Yes. So this event is really kind of sponsored by the author Naylina Kai. And it's happening, it has started, it's happening August 4th through the 6th. And on her site, naylinakai.com/tribe. And you can just like, if you don't know how to spell her name, you can just like put in a hashtag of I like free books and it'll pop up. But through that, only this weekend, August 4th through the 6th, there are over 200 books that are free. And you can go in and download any of these books. There's no catch. You do not have to sign up for a newsletter. And there's no, set number of how many you can download. They're all ebooks. You do not have to return them. You just go in and you be like, oh, I like this book. Download it to your Kindle or your Nook, whatever you desire. They are only free through this weekend, and you do not have to return them. And I love this because it's a really great way to discover and find new authors because, sometimes you like, oh, yeah, you just get put onto a new author and you love them. And it's really hard because, when you're putting your money out there as a reader, you don't know if you're going to love what you read. And, of course, you don't want to waste your money on something, and you don't want to waste your time on something that you don't love. So the beauty of this is that you really get to get into 200 plus free books. You get introduced to new authors, new books, and you find new authors and books to love. I really think it's really great.
I love it. I love it. Now, what's next? What's next in your literary journey?
Yeah, so I am currently working on the second book in the Dalton family series. And so the first book is just like old times. That was the main characters of Tristan and Trey. And so the next book, next time around, is between the characters Onyx and Ayana. You do get to see them in the first book. And that book will come out next year in 2024. In the meantime, I also am working on a series called Sync, SYNC. It is only available through Kindle Vella, and that is for free. So basically, like, Kindle Vella is like a series. And so I like to say it's kind of like watching a TV series where you get one episode, and then you get to go to the next episode. And so I call the chapters episodes. And so if you go online or you go to Amazon, right, and you just search Think Chichima Cherry, you'll get to read that book for free. It is a short story. I am wrapping it up. And then I think there might be about 15 episodes right now. It's a bit spicier than just like old times. And then Think is really like she's a single person. She was supposed to, move to paradise with her husband. She ended up leaving him at the airport. And so what you're seeing is the aftermath of that. She's trying to figure out what she wants to do in life, who she wants to be with. She's really just kind of going through like a self-discovery phase. And so you get to follow her journey. The chapter or the episode that I'm at right now is where her story blends with the characters that are in Just Like Old Times. And I won't give too much away, but it was, if you've read Just Like Old Times and then you read Think, you're going to be like, ain't no way this was that girl that did that. So you'll get to see kind of like the evolution of Think. Think is the girl's name. That's why it's named Think. And you'll understand in the story why she has taken on that name as well. So yeah, that's what I'm working on right now. I'm hoping to finish that very, very soon or wrap up her story. I'm kind of debating whether that book will just be a short story that kind of develops into a fuller book where she has like, her own romance story. But in addition to that, all of the Dalton characters in the series will have their own books. So there will be 6 full novels for the Dalton family. Sync will have her own book. And additionally, I am working on another Curiously Cara book. I just haven't figured out what African queen I will feature next. So until I do, that's on pause.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you for sharing your time, your space, and your energy with me. I want you to shout out all of your social media so people can keep up with everything Chicha Cherry.
Yes. Okay, so on IG, you can follow me at Chichima Cherry. I'm also on there as author.chi. I'm on TikTok as author.chi. I'm on Threads as author.chi as well. And then, of course, you can follow the publishing page as well. It's at Write and Vibe on Facebook and Instagram. When you go to, the website writeandvibe.com, and then, of course, that's WRITEANDVIBE.com, you'll have a chance to sign up for the newsletter. And the newsletter is great. I'm going to say it's really random, right? So it comes out on random Tuesdays. There's no rhyme or reason except how much time I have to work on it. So you won't be spammed, you won't be overwhelmed or anything like that. But when I do the newsletters, I do try and, add tips in there for writers. So like things I've learned on the way, I like to share in the newsletters when I have a chance. So if you do sign up for that newsletter, you won't be let down.
I love it. I love it. Well, we thank you for sharing your time, space, and energy, and I want you to have a great rest of your day.
All right. Thank you so much.
You are so very welcome.
Purchase new wiper blades from O'Reilly Auto Parts today and we'll install them for free. See better and drive safer with O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly